Welcome to another episode of The Mind's Eye with Mike Lowry. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate your support. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. There's more content coming. I appreciate you. I got my boy Tony here. He and I connected through a men's group that was connected from Elevation. Like I told y'all before, I meet a lot of good people from Elevation. Even after the men's group didn't continue anymore, he and I remain friends, and we always continue to connect, become a sounding board for each other, talk about real life situations. And without further ado, he and I are going to talk about when feeling discouraged. So shout out to my boy Tony. Stay tuned.
I don't get no jitters.
Oh, you a natural, huh?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that. Okay, all right. All right, Tony, I do appreciate you tapping into the mind's eye today. Um, I appreciate that. This has been a long time coming. We've had schedule conflicts and things have happened, but we're here now, and I appreciate the time that you've taken out to do this.
Absolutely, man. It shows that we still wanted to do it, right? Come through
Yes,
some of the
sir.
obstacles.
Yes, sir.
So
That's what it's about. I feel like in life, a lot of times, things may not go exactly the way we want them to, but if you're persistent and this is something you really want to do, then you'll make it happen, regardless of when you think it's supposed to happen.
that's right. Yeah, I like the friends that continue to push through. Um, I don't think that you always have to go with the friends that are always just there available when you think that they should be, but the friends that make them available even when it's not convenient because they
Right.
really want to try to show up. So yeah, no,
Absolutely.
I'm with you, man. I'm excited. Just
Yes,
do
sir.
it.
Well, man, I want to congratulate you from exciting news that you're a new father now, a new husband. How's that been for you?
It has been quite the ride. Definitely, I mean, it has made me a better human, um, a better Christian for sure, man, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it has taught me so much on the patience, and especially so it's been interesting because I got married before we had the child, our son Arlo.
Mhm.
Um, and by seeing my new wife also becoming a new mother has really developed and strengthened our relationship in the ways that she shows up for him. She teaches me a lot, especially in the areas of patience and kindness and just being completely raw and available for our son taught me a lot of ways that I suffered and I was weak. So it has really shown me where her strengths are, really complement where I might not have them, and we both kind of learn from each other. So it has been obviously an organic way of figuring each other out over a short amount of time as new parents. But
Mhm.
I think we're doing a fantastic job, and I'm loving every day. Our son is finally starting to coo and smile. So all those, 2 hour, 4 hour, now finally 6 hour nights are worthwhile when I can see his smile on
Yeah,
his face, right? I can see something that fills my cup back up.
yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. It's funny because that leads to the topic that I wanted to talk to you about is when it comes to feeling discouraged. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Oftentimes we know we deal with a lot of situations in our life that may not necessarily go our way. We may be anticipating for something or that job or just anything or whatever it is that you're like you could be praying for or that you have hope for and it doesn't work out. Like there's times where we've been laid off, from our jobs and wasn't sure how we were going to make it. There's situations and things that has happened that were detrimental or appeared or seemed to be detrimental that would appear to be a complete setback in whatever it is that we have going on. Can you tell me a time where you feel like there's a situation for you where you feel like you were discouraged? And what did you do? Not only what did you do to get out of that place and
Mm,
become that situation, but more so, what did you do mentally to get out of it mentally and overcome it mentally?
that's a good question, mate. I'd say there's probably like four times, but I'll start with probably my first true experience because I was a lot younger. In case you have
Mhm.
anybody younger in the audience, try to relate. But it was right around like I'd say going into sophomore year of college. I was feeling very discouraged within my college courses in the manner that yes, my grades were high, but it was
Yeah.
at the expense of my mental, right? I was putting in so much time and effort, probably more than the common student, because some of the reading materials didn't come as easily for me. Reading wasn't my strong suit. So I
Mm,
had to do probably what was more work to get the same grade that somebody else would do, right, for half the effort.
yeah.
So long story short here, I really exerted myself to the fullest. I strained myself and I was wondering, am I suited for college?
Hmm.
So I knew I needed a break. I didn't know what that looked like. I felt very discouraged in the college course, right? And obviously at a young age, you're thinking, hey, everybody has to go through college in this manner. It's right after high school, and then you find the career you love and yada yada. For me, feeling discouraged, I had to come back towards God and say, something's going on. My meter is telling me something's off.
Yeah.
I'm going to take time off, but I don't know what it is. And I started to really get into my health, like eating well and gardening and going to the farmers market, talking to the
Hmm.
farmers, eating really good produce. And I started to see this level of pure happiness and contentness
Hmm.
that God felt like God was telling me there's something in them that you're seeking that you don't have. So what I
Yeah.
did is I left college and actually farmed for what ended up becoming another full 6 years, but I did it for one semester. Then I went back to school for agriculture, and it gave me exactly what I needed to feel empowered, to feel excited. And it allowed me to focus on school in a different way because now I could focus on what I was excited about
Yeah.
and reading became a whole lot easier. So that was that moment for me that highlighted discourage, not necessarily a bad thing. It's a warning sign, just like
Hmm.
anxiety or maybe depression. But what you do with it, leaning into it with God
Hmm.
and really finding your courage through it, you're going to feel so much more confident in yourself and have that self-respect.
Yeah, for sure. I had a situation where, like my current job, I had actually left the job I had previously because I had got hired, for my current job. However, they had a situation with the background checks. It was like a nationwide situation in North Carolina where everything was kind of delayed. And so, given the fact that I had already quit, given thinking I'm starting on this day, and then that day gets pushed back a month, then another month. So it's just like, oh man, this now we're going on 2 months, and I don't have any source of income. So in that place, like what it taught me was I could either sit here or and kind of weep and be upset and complain or what have you. I really had to humble myself. And this is a lot that a lot of people don't know. I went to work at Cookout for about 3 weeks. In the meantime, while the opportunity came that I thought was going to come 2 months sooner. And so what that did for me is that like I felt like God was telling me it's like, what are you willing to do when it gets hard? Can you
Mm,
humble yourself enough to push through the situation at this level? If you can't
mm,
do it at this level, how can I elevate you to another level?
mm,
So with that being said, that was an eye opener for me. And even though I only worked there 3 weeks, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I was willing to do to push forward, to overcome certain obstacles and things like that. And I think that oftentimes a lot of us don't do that, as a whole and as a people. We'll look at situations and think like, well, maybe it's not for me, or maybe it's this. I was like, if you're so easy to quit, that easily, then maybe it isn't. Maybe it isn't for you. You know what I mean?
That's a great point. And so a couple things on that, Mike. So I mean, one is the humble aspect that you mentioned, and even telling your story. I think we need to, as people in our community, is to share these stories more often because
Sure.
we often hold them in, right? We don't share them, whether it's because we're reluctant or whatever it may be, and maybe it's an ego strike or whatever. But the more you discuss that, I think it builds that courage a little bit more. Because I remember you did tell us that story once, but it was after a long period of time that had passed. And
Mm-hmm.
once you told me that, it stuck with me because that's why I remembered it. And
Hmm.
it gave me more courage in some of the other aspects of my life. But I think so there's this kind of like setting to the side of the ego, right? And being humbled.
Hmm.
So yeah, I love that story right there though.
Yeah. So what I learned too in feeling discouraged is like, I think you kind of alluded to it too, is like you tap into like something, a different part of you. You tap into like everything can't always go perfect because if it does, then you're never really like strained. You never really get to the like the powerful you, the person that can like really do some good in your community or in the world and your relationships or what have you. You need a little bit of struggle. And I think a lot of times people don't really fully understand that there's a lot of good in that, believe it
Yeah, it's
or
that rebuilding nature,
not.
right? The whole
Hmm.
death, then life, right? The cycle. And I think that that is critical, right? It's this reevaluation, rebuilding of the mind and the spirit, wherever you're at, wherever you need to be. But we think we get so stuck in our perspectives, right? And it only gets us so far. So you
Yeah.
hit the plateaus just like you would in the gym or anywhere else in life. You're going to hit a plateau, and then you have to start doing things differently. And as
Hmm.
humans, we don't like to do the different, the unknown often. So it more often than not, it takes this big instance to hit us in the face and say,
Yeah.
what I'm doing is not working. So now I'm feeling discouraged because it's not working anymore. Okay, that's a good thing in a way,
Hmm.
depending on what you do with it, right? And so with you, you had the courage to, okay, I'm gonna roll up my sleeves and I'm gonna go work at Cookout for 3 weeks because best believe I'm gonna have meals on the table and I'm gonna support my family however I
Yeah.
need. So that at the end of the day is what you got to do, right? That's the courage aspect is doing what needs to be done despite the obstacles, despite the pain, despite the grief. Because if there was no pain, grief, there wouldn't be courage. You just would do it.
Yeah, you
You need
would.
checking the mailbox. That's not
Yeah.
courage. It's just action.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny though, like today, man, I had a interesting thing. I know I talked to you about it a little earlier about what happened today, and I was feeling this discouraged. Like the craziest thing happened, which I think some of us have done similar crazy things before, but it caused a lot of sweat and it caused a lot of walking back and forth. So what happened was so I left to go get gas, right? And so when I went to go get gas, when you have a newer car, like it's a push, right? You can't lock the keys in the door, right? So I got out of the car, locked the car, and then go back and then depending on the car, if you push the gas knob, it'll open the door so you can pump the gas and it's based on your door being locked or
Yeah.
unlocked. Some people have like old school, you could just push it and it'll open. Some people have it to where it locks or unlocks with the car. And so it wouldn't unlock. So I was just like, okay, something's not right. So then I tried to unlock the door. The door wouldn't unlock. And then I remembered, long story short, that I threw some stuff away, but at the time I didn't recognize it. I had threw some stuff away when I got out of the car. So I had the gas thing in my hand, about to pump gas, and I can't get into my gas pump in my car. So I had to cancel the sale and then go back up. Luckily, I live probably about zero point 0.3 miles from the gas station. So I walked to the gas station and I said to myself, I must have dropped my keys because I can't get back in my car. I must have dropped my keys. So I looked everywhere. I didn't see them. I went back to the gas station and I was like, let me try to use my app to unlock my doors because I should be able to use the app. It's a newer car. I've done it before. I've done a remote start using it. It didn't work. It said, sorry, we can't, try again later. And I'm just like, what is going on? This is crazy. So I was like, maybe I missed something at the house. Let me walk back to the house and look around a little more. And I was like, it's not there. I'm not sure what to do. So I called Volkswagen. They like, let's put in a ticket to try to fix your app. Still was waiting. I called the roadside assistance. They was like, it'll be $90 to come fix this. I was like, no, this isn't my fault. My keys are just locked in my car. So I went back to the house again and I was like, let me look one more time. Maybe I never unlocked the door. So I go in the house. Well, so I never get in the house. I go to the door and the door's locked. So I'm like, okay, I locked the door. So I have my keys. So now at this point, I'm freaking out. I'm tripping. So I go back to the gas station again to look under the car and I'm just like, what is going on? So I was like, all right, I need to get in the house. I got some other stuff I need to do. I got Perspective Wednesday I need to edit and post. So I go to the the front desk and I say, hey, look, I need to get in the house. I'm locked out. What can I do? I left on my watch because then my license is in the car. So I left on my watch, get in the house, look everywhere for my spare key. And that took a while. And I finally found my spare key and I was just like, all right, I don't know what to do. I said, God, can you please help me find my keys? And so something came to me and said, what if you threw them in the trash? And I was just like, hmm, nah, I probably didn't throw them in the trash. And then I was just like, hmm, maybe I did. So I went back to Sheets, went through the trash, and realized I had threw my keys in the trash. And all this time, I was initially freaking out. I was going crazy and realized that if I take time to sit down and process some of the things that has transpired in my life, I probably can find everything I'm looking for. But I was so caught up in all the bad things that appeared to happen, the $90 for, the cost of them coming to unlock it, me locking my keys in the car. Something must be wrong with my car. Something must be wrong with my keys. It's hot as crap today. I walk back and forth probably 5 or 6 times. Everything is wrong. What's happening? And then
Mhm.
when I sat down, asked God to help me find it, and literally processed, I realized that maybe He was protecting me from something, and it caused me to be still. And my keys and everything else is already secure. And then it's crazy how you have to go through all that and feel discouraged and feel, like a place of like, this is impossible. And your keys just sitting there the whole time waiting on you to get the message.
Yeah. No, I think that, is a good analogy too, to like the keys are typically close by you,
Hmm.
but probably under some garbage, some rubbish. You got to refine it. And it looks messy, right? Because it's like, it's acknowledging your ego, like, oh, I'm not as good as I thought I was, or this or that, right? It's this rawness of evaluation. So as you're digging in the trash, digging inside yourself, say, hey, I mean, maybe it's the fact that I'm not disciplined. Maybe it's the fact I'm not showing up and I'm not doing this, but I've got the courage to push through, right? I've got the courage to dig through the trash in a public space because I think that's where my keys are. I'm not going to be able to get from point A to point B without my keys.
Absolutely.
So,
I think we should have that same thought process with anything, anything in life. Like, and the idea of feeling discouraged is like it's not always going to be perfect. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be things that are going to be setbacks. But my question for you is that, you're a man in your 30s, I would assume, correct? And so,
60s actually, yeah. I've
you
got
say, say that again?
good skincare routine. It's the
Yeah.
60s.
There
Yeah.
you go.
I'm,
Damn.
I'm in my 30s, yeah.
But so with that being said, I would assume that like you didn't always have this mindset. This mindset had to develop. And what do you think are some of the things that helped you develop this mindset and understanding that being discouraged and being in this place sometimes can actually turn into it can be helpful?
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure, like with time you have the ability to have all these experiences to see it through, but for sure by everybody says, seize the opportunities, and it's all about how fast you bounce back, right? Not how you fall down, but and it is true. But I think it's just by losing this ego, by going into things initially to say, look, I'm going to start by looking stupid, asking stupid questions. It's not going to go perfect. It's not going to go my way probably. By changing, I realize when you go into things, it's all about that first initial thoughts.
Mhm.
So when I start to think about wanting to do something, it's the first, for me, 5 to 10 minutes of my thoughts. If my first 5 to 10 minutes of thoughts is fear and depression, and I sit and marinate in it, then I've already started a half a block this direction.
Mhm.
My first 5 to 10 minutes, I have the courage and I'm thinking I can do this. I'm not going to probably do it perfect or right. I already tell myself it's not going to be great, but I'll start on it. That's courage. Now I'm walking this direction, the right direction. And I'm telling myself 9 out of 10 times I've either figured it out as I've gone or I figured out a valuable lesson at least.
Yeah.
Either case, it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So it's that humbleness, the loss of ego, but then realizing you just got to start doing it.
Sure.
They say like there's two pains in life. There's the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. To me, discipline is a part of courage too. I mean,
Mhm.
the more you're disciplined, the more you will practice your being encouraged. But
Yeah.
yeah, so for me, it's all about that initial response, and you just got to do it, realizing that you're going to look like a fool, and that's okay because it
Yeah.
don't matter what people think, and just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, like I think that, when I'm feeling discouraged the most, I always remind myself of what I've overcome in the past.
Mm, yeah.
Process of what I've overcome in the past is more so of what I remembered like how it transpired and what happened, how I felt, and then what revelation I got in the end from it. And
Yeah.
utilizing that is like as much as I initially, because I think that people have to understand too, like you are human, so you got to feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, don't go against your feeling, like, and be like, oh, everything is perfect. I'm okay. No, be human and
Yeah.
feel that, for a second, because I think there's something that you can gain from that initially. You just don't stay there. Because
For
once
sure.
you stay there, you can't logically think anymore clear enough to kind of like, okay, so let me backtrack. Let me process everything that's transpired to see why this may have happened. And then is it something for me to be redirected or whatever the case may be? But you got to be human. And I think that some people are so logical or overly logical,
Yeah.
they're not, they don't humanize anything anymore. So, but with that being said, what is one thing when it comes to feeling discouraged that you feel like you can leave with the people that you learn at your 60 years of life? I mean, 30 some years of life with the good skincare.
The the one thing is really what you get out of it is that for me at least is it's not just doing the thing that you develop the courage to do. It's more about my self-recognition that okay, it was something that I probably typically wouldn't have done, or I'm looking back and I'm amazed at it. But it's that pride and confidence and just me respecting myself, like saying I did that, right? And nobody can take that away, right? And so to me, that builds that whole character. So when everybody says that dig a ditch, you build character and all that, like to me, it's all about that doing the hard things does build character, but it's because you're disciplining yourself. It's because you're putting yourself through these experiences, and that lends yourself to becoming way more dynamic. And when
Yeah,
you're a dynamic human, you start to relate to so many more people. And so, like just like you and I always talk about these different things that happen in life, I'm like, yeah, that happened to me this one time, or this or that. So now we have so much more to relate on. So you're building up this muscle to now you can take on so much more. Like you said, I've looked in the
mhm,
past and I can tell you all those times I had courage, it becomes easier over time.
for sure.
So it's never too
Yeah,
late. And the longer you do it, the more it compounds on itself because it's
yeah,
a muscle.
for sure. For me, I feel like feeling discouraged is part of the process. And then, we have to find ourselves in a place of where we have to accept it. Accept what's happening, accept what's, you know, has transpired, and then find ways to move forward. But I think, accepting it is the key.
Let me ask you a question then. Do you think there's a time and place to feel discouraged? Is being discouraged a good thing under the right parameters for anyone?
I think it's crazy though. This may sound crazy, and this is like really deep in my mind. Maybe not to somebody to receive it, but like I do think that feeling discouraged is something that we all need to some degree. I think
Mhm.
that I think Damon John actually wrote a book. It's called The Power in Being Broke. And
Mm.
like that his ideology behind that was to, if I'm not this low, I don't really have the mindset or thought process for some people to do something about it, to get out of
Mm.
space, to have the drive to be motivated. I don't want to be broke anymore. So what am I going to do to overcome that obstacle? So I think that a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of discourage, a little bit of those setbacks is what brings out the beast in you.
Yeah, you're not gonna be hungry unless you're getting hunger pains.
That's right. If everything
Yeah.
is always smooth, then you don't have nothing to work on. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, so like there's one thought process is that when it comes to, you practice for perfection, right? But some people think that you don't practice for perfection, because if you practice for perfection, then there's never any room to grow because you become perfect. So
Right. They say
always
perfection stops progress.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you always put yourself in a position to keep moving forward. So you always continue to practice, because
Mm.
everyone always has room to grow. And in order to have room to grow, you have to have an obstacle. So with that being said, that's how I feel about your question.
I will say I do think there's a time to be discouraged and to
Sure.
never develop courage to do that.
Oh, for sure.
Because
There's a
sometimes
balance.
you'll discourage from doing something completely stupid, right?
Absolutely.
So if I had the chance to fight some of the greatest boxers in history, I'm going to feel discouraged. And
Mhm.
Anthony or Tony, I'm not going to be feeling like I've got the courage to fight them, and I probably shouldn't because I'd be stupid enough to go
For
in there
sure.
and get beat. But um, yeah, to me, that that alone is the indicator of where should you have courage is where you really feel like you're in God's vision.
Hmm.
You're right on the mark of where you feel like God wants you to be or
Yeah.
going towards, or you got this fulfillment that is bettering either in your life and or other people's. To me,
Yeah.
that's where you want to focus your courage on.
Absolutely. That's emotional intelligence. That's like understanding the awareness, understanding who you are, and understanding like, what you need and how you can like move forward in setbacks or what have you. Most people, oh, I can't say most people, but some people, when they have setbacks, it derails them. Some people, when they have setbacks, it motivates them. Be someone that's motivated by your setback.
I like that, man. I like it.
Yes, sir. But Tony, man, I appreciate the time. I know you got to get back to the baby. I appreciate this time. I'm glad we were able to connect. We definitely got to do this again sometimes, man. I really do.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Yes, sir.
Much love to you and this show here, man. And we'll talk again here soon. But I really appreciate your time too.
Yes, sir. Sounds good, man. I'll talk to you.
All right, Mike.
Well, that concludes another episode of The Mind's Eye with Mike Lowry. Again, guys, I appreciate you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If there's a particular topic or thing that you want me to discuss or someone else to discuss on this channel, please drop a comment. I would greatly appreciate that. I want the involvement of the people, and I'm grateful for it. But with that being said, don't forget to think about anxiety, think about other things that could potentially feel like a setback, and utilize those as opportunities to push through.